Here on the left, we have the common Cuckoo bird, otherwise known as the Street Fighter Alpha 2 player. What is a cuckoo bird? If a little English lesson for you guys. Cuckoo birds were known to have a sort of unrequited love for something, to a often stupid degree. The thing that they love might not even love them back. So we have this term in English, maybe in other languages. When you love something and you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, we might say that you're a cuckoo bird. You're cuckoo. The term cuckoo is often associated with just saying somebody is crazy. And that is what a Street Fighter Alpha 2 player is, often a common cuckoo bird. We'll get rid of the common cuckoo bird. As you can see, the cuckoo bird, we also have the term cuck for loving someone even though they're fucking someone else. Do you know what I mean? So lots of terms have come from the common cuckoo bird. We're going to use the Street Fighter Alpha 1 picture because fuck Street Fighter Alpha 2. So anyway, I've talked about Street Fighter Alpha 2 in multiple videos, and you know, I've always said this before, and sometimes people try to say that I love Street Fighter Alpha 1, and that's not the case. All games have their good, all games have their bad, okay? Sometimes we just enjoy playing one game more so than the others. So this is not that Alpha 2 is the worst game ever made or something like that. This is just what I've always said, that Alpha 2 players, and maybe to a certain degree, a lot of people, when they like something, they're a bit cuckoo for it, right? But Alpha 2 players specifically, especially, have always stood out to me as players that live in a fantasy, make-up world believe about the game that they love. They're a cuckoo bird for it. The game that they talk about is a make-believe game that does not exist. Again, this isn't to say Alpha 2 is the worst game ever, but the game, when you hear people talk about it, when they are fans of the game, so to speak, they're insane. As a common enjoyer of video games, every now and then I'll watch, some fighting games or whatever, and I was watching Alpha 2 recently again, and I'm like, once again, this game proves the people that talk about this game have no fucking idea what they are talking about when they talk about this game. And I see some people post that one video I made years ago, and even talk about when I've talked about this so many years ago. I've talked about how Alpha 2 is a very hypocritical game, and they don't like me using the word hypocritical for the game, or that the game is very, contradictory towards how people talk about it. And I'm like how so? People talk about the game in an extremely hypocritical manner that doesn't make any sense. They are constantly contradicting themselves when they talk about the game. Alpha 2 is promoted as some game that is the most amazing footsie game ever created. Well, if we think about footsies and spacing and just normal, I will say the scope of the game of Alpha 2, the character sprites on the screen and the screen size, I do think is good. But when we're actually talking about Street Fighter Alpha 2 is the greatest footsie game ever made, there is this sort of association, but that there must be some kind of amazing poking sort of game, with punishing game. Normals must be so well thought out, that kind of thing in terms of what they do. And it just the whole kind of what moves do in general. And if you play the game and if you actually watch it, it's not true whatsoever, dude. I'll use an example for Guy, and people are going to be mad, and we'll go from Guy here. Okay, we have the most amazing footsie game whatsoever. Why do characters like Guy, and so many other characters for that matter, have moves that you're literally punishable after you hit the guy? They make no sense. Why can Guy be punished when he sweeps the guy from almost any distance? My sweep just doesn't work in footsies. My running overhead is punishable. I have a down forward flip kick where its main use is to go over lows, but they didn't think to actually adjust the hitbox, so when it goes over a low, it can actually hit the low character. So when you use Guy's down forward roundhouse to go over a low and hit the character, it will go over the low but not hit the opponent. Guy's hurricane kick can go through a fireball but not hit the character. This isn't just Guy in terms of terribly thought out moves. Adon can hit with a jaguar kick to go over fireballs and you're punished. Charlie hits you with an overhead, a slow ass overhead. Charlie is punishable. What makes these and of course I used the special move example with Adon, but what makes these normals stick out is even more terrible. I'm forgetting my English as I gave an English lesson early in the video. I exposed myself. There you go. I exposed myself. It's hard trying to speak multiple languages, okay? When we talk about just Alpha 2 has less moves than other games, so to speak. You don't have the close normals, right? There should be less excuse to have normals that do not function properly. We already have normals that, in a sense, in Alpha 2 are functioning as almost two different moves. You know what I mean? Two different uses, in a sense, right? They're a close normal that now, because you can do them everywhere, they actually function as a poke. Often a oppressive poke, because since it's a close normal, it needs to be able to hit the character ducking. Obviously, I'm talking about very cliche normals like Shoto's stand strong, you know what I mean, are very strong for what they are. Pun not intended, but pun right there. You know what I mean, in Alpha 2, right? There's just lots of normals that you're like, wow, these normals feel so oppressive and strong for what they are, because they're functioning in multiple ways, right? Because we have less normals. But then that makes it even worse when you see these normals that are so bad, because it's like, fuck, I have less moves and the moves I have don't work properly. And again, I've made videos about this before. There is actually an argument to having moves that have a redundant almost function, right? There is a potential complexity and redundancy, because even if the move looks fairly similar, just very minute differences can cause drastic differences in terms of how you use them. Again, I've made videos on that, right? But Alpha 2, the most amazing footsie game ever created, has super oppressive normals in some characters and their movesets. And then other characters have moves that are so bad, they make no fucking sense. In the greatest footsie game ever created, the community will tell you. The community will tell you that they hated chain combos in Alpha 1. We don't like being able to do like mashing moves. We don't want to mash special moves. Any of these that kind of shit, terrible. But then they are okay with custom combos. Is that not hypocritical? Do they not contradict themselves? The community supers are too powerful. We don't like having level 1 supers where if you're not blocking, you know what I mean? Oh, then it hits you. Is that not a funny thing? Is it not funny that the community is like, man, I really don't like that you can do a level 1 in front of somebody, and if I wasn't blocking in time, then it hits me. That just doesn't seem fair. And I really don't like, I don't like that. I don't like that supers can hit you if you weren't blocking in time in Alpha 1, and I really don't like chain combos in Alpha 1. But custom combos where you can mash. You can mash and do something during a custom combo, and it is more powerful than your super, and it is also unblockable, just like your super if you were not blocking before. But these same people that love Alpha 2 hated Alpha 1. Is that not hypocritical of them? I mean, is that not contradictory of them? Also, do custom combos not kind of throw a big... I'm a Hammer Brother from Mario Brothers. Imagine the Hammer Brother from Mario is throwing a fucking wrench at your fucking face, you fucking idiot. He's throwing a big monkey wrench in your face. Alpha 2, the greatest fucking footsie game ever. And does it not kind of devolve into, oh fuck, I got a level 1, I can custom combo. You got to be worried about my custom combo. Do people in Alpha 2 now talk about Alpha 2 is so, you know what I mean? The custom combos make it more balanced, blah, blah, blah. This character sucks, but you know what? I might run in your face and you don't know if I'm going to randomly custom combo you. That's the balancing factor of Alpha 2. Wow, so skillful. So skillful. Yeah, I got a super. You don't know if I'm just going to randomly do it in your face. And it's also more powerful than my super. And it's also just like on Alpha 1, unblockable if you weren't blocking beforehand. And it also, just by mashing, blah, 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 the same crap that you complain about in Alpha 1 is more powerful than Alpha 1. Alpha 2 is a fucking fairy tale of a fucking game. I'm serious. And anytime I'm bored and I watch a match of it, I'm like, oh yeah, this game, you know what, Alpha 2, God, cool stages, Cool music. I like the scope of the game, like the screen position of the characters, the spacing. It seems good. And when the footsies are working, it's like, okay, every game has its sort of overpowered normal. Obviously, every game is going to have a good and a better character. But then you're like, God, that is just a bad move, right? You just see things like, why is that move so bad? You see characters anti-air, it's like, yeah, okay, every game has some weird anti-airs interactions. You accept it, but Alpha 2, the greatest footsie game of all time, it is just littered with it. And it's like, ugh, these moves, like, why is that move so bad? Why is this move so powerful? Oh God, it's like, okay, we're getting a good flow. Like, wow, this looks like some good spacing. Oh fuck, oh yeah, they got now someone's got a super. Yeah, fuck. Well, just gotta wait till the most skilled game ever. Wait till someone uses their alpha, their custom combo. Yeah, Alpha 2, amazing game. It's a fucking fairy tale game. I can't believe the people that talk about Alpha 2. What game are you watching? It's crazy, dude. And you know what? Like I said, it's a Cuckoo game. How can anyone like have I have no respect for the people that talk about Alpha 2 when they talk about some of the things they say, because they say things that are so obviously not true. And it's like, dude, if you like the game, you like the game. That's cool. We all like different kind of games. I'm not saying Alpha 2 is the worst game ever. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? It's like every game has its good and bad, and we find things that the good outweighs the bad for us, right? But the way that you talk about Alpha 2, anyone that's brain is still working and not in complete la-la land and can logically look at the game, see the way that you're talking about the game is not real to what you're comparing it to. You're constantly contradicting yourself with the way that it works. You know what I mean? Even rolling in Alpha 2, is that not contradictory? People hated rolls in Alpha 1. And Alpha 2, you added short rolls. Really? You know what I mean? I hear like, and you know, again, people try to say that I like Alpha 1 or I think it's the best game. I think Alpha 1 is a charming game in its own ghetto-ness. It's not, Alpha 1, it's an ugly game, but it's so ugly it's kind of charming, right? You know, in its own kind of way. I've actually said before, if you actually put the system of Alpha 1 in Alpha 2, I think at the end of the day, and I know this is my hot take, I think if you took the general idea of Alpha 1, you know what I mean, but put it in Alpha 2 and added those other characters and everything like that, and just switched the system, whatever, I think people would have liked that version of Alpha 1 or Alpha 2, whatever you want to call it. Because custom combos are terrible. Alpha 2 has a lot of fucking moves that make no sense. Moves in Alpha 1 make sense. I can't think of any move in Alpha 1 where I'm like, wow, that move doesn't really... Why is that move so bad? Do you know what I mean? Alpha 1's problem, I've always said this before, and this is actually, maybe I could make a game theory video on this more clearly. Alpha 1, one of the problems is that people don't like guessing. And Alpha 1 to me is a coin flip game. Alpha 1 has a lot of coin flips where you can lose the match instantly. So, you know, there's actually, if we even look at a game like Guilty Gear Strive, right? I don't know if I've ever talked about this exactly. I've talked about the coin flip theory of Alpha 1 before, but I don't know if I've compared it to Strive. I don't remember. But if we look at a game like Guilty Gear Strive, they wanted to get rid of the Okizeme in the corner, whatever, like this. But, you know what I mean? We didn't want to like pin down a character. We didn't want guaranteed setups. But if we're looking at Alpha 1 logically speaking, not like a fake fairy tale of people that say they're good at Alpha 1, and then these same people that said they were so godlike at Alpha 1, they fucking have lost to me for free with no practice. You know what I mean? I mean, come on. I've absolutely destroyed people in Alpha 1 with no practice. It's ridiculous, right? You can just tell you've never played this game at a high level. But Alpha 1, you know what I mean? You talk about a game like Guilty Gear Strive where people say that they don't like guaranteed stuff, so to speak, right? Alpha 1, things are so not guaranteed it makes the game feel spazzy and random. Because you can roll 99.9% of the moves in the game, and because unlike Alpha 2 where you have a short roll to kind of make yourself safe, quotation marks in certain perspective, Alpha 1 you only have an all-in roll. Okay? So Alpha 1 has this weird kind of ghetto kind of fucking coin flip game to it, like, wow, I got knocked down. Do I stay knocked down and take the mix-up, fireball trap, whatever the fuck you want to call it, or do I roll? But in Alpha 1, you only have the big roll. The big roll or go home. In Alpha 1, coincidentally enough, a lot of characters, the good characters in the game, and even some weaker characters to a certain extent, right? Better characters in the game, let's say, kill you off a roll. And that's why people, if you actually play Alpha 1 with people that actually know what they're doing, that kind of stuff, you know what I mean? That is the eye-rolling thing about Alpha 1. Because it's like, do I stay knocked down and do I take this mix-up, or do I guess and roll? Because when you roll, you get punished the hardest in that game, dude, because your character is always standing. And the biggest dizzy combos in that game are on standing opponents. And that makes Alpha 1 super eye-rolling because it's like, fuck, nothing is guaranteed. Everything is a guess. And believe it or not, this goes back to some of my other videos, people don't like losing off a guess. And in Alpha 1, you can easily lose off a guess to the stronger characters in the game. You know what I mean? So that actually, I don't know if I talked about that Strive example before, but Strive, you know, people say they don't like guaranteed stuff. Look at a game like Alpha 1. If you're looking at the game logically speaking, why do people not like the game? If they have actually played it and played it at a competent level, that is a legitimate complaint about the game. Because you easily die to a guess in Alpha 1. And that's why people tell fairy tales about, oh, guy dizzies you, or guy hits you once and you automatically die. That's not the game. The reason a character like Guy is strong in Alpha 1 is because if Guy knocks you down, he kills you off a roll, like so many other characters like Ryu can, Ken can, Akuma can, Rose can. You know what I mean? The powerful characters in the game, you die off the guess. But something strong about Guy, comparatively, is if you don't roll, Guy's overhead dizzies you in 3 hits. And Guy's overhead is very fast in that game. So when you if someone tells you that you automatically lose because Guy touched you once, unless they played the beta version of the game, which I don't know anyone in America that ever played the beta version of the game. You know what I mean? Like even the Japanese, you know what I mean? Is that like a Japanese beta tier list or something where Guy did have some easier re-dizzies or something like that? Because if you played any version of the game that is not like week 1, whatever like that, then yeah, most characters kill you very fast in that game. And if someone tells you that they were playing the game at a high level and they were not in Japan, do you know what I mean? And Guy instantly killed you when he touched you, that is a clear kind of cut example of this person is either exaggerating or they have never actually played the game. Because that's not how the game is played. Guy does not hit you with any one single attack and you die. That is a fairy tale, Cuckoo Land thing that they read. You know what I mean? So Alpha 1 has lots of problems, right? I mean, the game is a clusterfuck. But Alpha 1, for its credit, and I think it's kind of charming in a ghetto kind of way, moves in Alpha 1 do what they look like they're going to do. Unlike the greatest footsie game of all time that people constantly talk about in a hypocritical manner, where you hit characters with normals and then you're punishable after it, where you hit characters with jaguar kicks that are supposed to go over fireballs, you're punished, where your hurricane kick goes through a fireball, it's your one move that goes through a fireball, but then it they forgot to put the hurt box in to hit the character, where a character hits you with an overhead that's slow, but then they get punished after, where a character has a flip kick that goes over lows, but they forgot to give it a hit box to go over to actually hit the character that is ducking then, where your greatest footsie game ever, you hate supers that are unblockable on startup if you weren't blocking, you hate mashing for combos as too powerful, but you then love custom combos that the game just devolves and degenerates to. If you are that hypocritical, if you are that contradictory, then you, sir, are the common cuckoo bird. You are the Alpha 2 player. Remember, if you like the videos, like, sub, silly, comment, share, support the channel if you want. I appreciate it. Thanks. Thumbnail action. I probably should put Alpha 2. Maybe I'll put Alpha 2 in the end.